Whilst the Switch has a few budget pool games, it's been crying out for a really decent cue-sport game since its launch. The portable nature of the console and the turn-based play of pool or snooker make them perfect bedfellows, but amazingly it's taken until the Switch is well into its second year before we have a game worthy of note. And while Snooker 19 is the best billiard game on the system to date, it's not without some flaws. As always, let me tell you all about it in my review of Snooker 19 on the Nintendo Switch. Snooker 19 is the first officially licensed snooker game in over 8 years, and thanks to a real willingness from the World Snooker Organisation to see the game done justice, they've allowed developers Lab 42 to have pretty much unprecedented access to all the real life players, locations, tournaments and equipment. And boy have the guys done a cracking job with this. From the high definition photos dotted around the slick menus, to including every event on the tour and even including a section for the rising stars of the game. A bunch of young, low-ranked players that you can take control of and guide to glory through the career mode. Be warned though, as playing as a rising star will see you pitted against a top seed early on in a tournament on more occasions than not. The career mode is where you'll spend most of your time if you're not interested in online play, and thankfully it really is excellent. From the qualifying tournaments to major events right up to the World Snooker Championships themselves at the famous Crucible Theatre, everything is here. As you work through the career, you will endeavour to earn trophies and prize money with the goal of climbing up to claim the world #1 spot. Unfortunately, there's no option here to create your own player for the career mode, which was the big bone of contention at the game's initial launch. It feels like the response from Lab 42 and publishers Ripstone was a bit glib when they dismissed complaints about this, saying that they wanted to focus on real players in the game, but honestly it's either a bad oversight or a budgetary decision to leave this out of a sports game. I don't expect this to be added until a potential Snooker 20 is released. The number of frames in the matches can be customised to suit if you want quick matches or the realistic frame counts from the actual tournaments, and thankfully matches can also be saved at any point by quitting back to the main menu, which is an absolute godsend and a very welcome feature if you only have a short window of playtime available. So for this game I'm going to elaborate on some of the specifics as I think this will be helpful, and first up here is controls. Now controls generally are very well done with one small caveat. First up, the control scheme employed in Snooker 19 may be the best I've experienced in a similar game. You line up your shot using a typical TV style camera from the foot of the table and press A. This then moves you to a view just behind the cue ball, allowing you to fine tune your shot if needed, and a tap of the A button again will take you into shot mode. This final camera view is more cinematic as you'd expect to see on TV, and in this final stage is where you actually take your shot, pulling back on the right stick to set a power bar in motion and then pushing forward on the stick to make contact with the ball. It may seem overly fiddly at first, but once you get into the flow after a few games, it feels pretty much perfect and I really love how it works. The slight issue I mentioned is specific to the Switch, I think. Coming from the Xbox version, the left stick on that controller feels less sensitive than the Switch, so sometimes using either the Joy-Con or Pro Controller, it can feel overly sensitive when you're moving your aiming bar, and it's easy to go back and forth around the object ball as you try to get the perfect angle. You can hold down ZL to fine tune your aiming aid, and this does help somewhat, but I did feel it's worth mentioning.
What a fabulous pop that is.
Whilst talking about controls, I should also point out there's no touchscreen support in the game at all, and finally if you're playing locally with a friend, the game does offer split Joy-Con support, which is pretty much the only Switch specific feature the game offers. Next up, I want to talk about graphics and performance, and this is where the Switch version has really surprised me, particularly in terms of performance. As I mentioned, I've played Snooker 19 a fair bit on the Xbox X, and at first glance it's honestly hard to tell the difference. And no, the Switch version doesn't quite have the HD sharp lines of the Xbox, but that's to be expected. Comparing them side by side, the only major differences I could tell were some of the lighting was different on the Switch, and the shadows cast by players' arms and cues on the tables were missing on the Switch version. But overall, I have to tip my hat to Lab 42 for doing a far better job than I expected with this port. Generally, the graphics in all versions of Snooker 19 aren't the best, and while the TV style presentation and tables and objects are generally excellent and really feel authentic, the players themselves feel very much last gen. The developers were given access to face scan nearly every player on the tour using high-tech scanning and camera equipment, but sadly it hasn't really translated that well into the game. players have very similar, if not identical, body builds, and some of the faces are just downright scary looking. A few of the players definitely captured a caricature of their real life counterparts, but some wonky lighting on players' faces generally leave them looking a bit like burns victims. It's a bit of a shame, but personally I think it's just about okay for the game at a first try. You really want most of the focus on what's going on the table, and whilst real avatars moving around the table is a nice touch, and by the way I certainly want them to stay in future versions, they can take you out of the experience a little bit at times due to their look. Other than those niggles and a few clipping issues, the game performs brilliantly with no slowdown or other performance issues at all, and I'm really impressed and pleased the Switch version has turned out so well. Sonically, things are as expected. Beyond a jazzy intro, the only sounds in the game are the polite coughs and murmurs from the crowd and some pretty lacklustre commentary. The commentary team are from Eurosport, so don't expect John Virgo and Steve Davis here, but they generally sound okay when they chip in. As typical for a lower budget sports game, expect a lot of repeated lines and things that sometimes don't actually reflect what's going on in the match. But again, I'd rather have them than not. Noise on the table is pretty good though, with decent ball noise and a satisfying thud when you slam a hard shot into the pockets. Now finally, I'm going to talk about gameplay, and this is where Snooker 19 really shines across all the platforms. If you're a real hardcore snooker fan, then no doubt you're going to find the odd hole to pick in the gameplay and some of the AI play, but again, Lab 42 are really active in patching the game to improve it, so any issues should be resolved down the line. In fact, the Switch version should have a patch ready, if not for today, then very soon after, which fixes a few things and adds in extra animations for the players, like them chalking their cues, bringing the Switch version up to parity with the other console versions. Now if you're a more casual fan, then there's a lot to enjoy in Snooker 19. The TV style presentation is excellent and at times looks very realistic to the broadcast of the sport. An adjustable aiming aid helps you learn the game, and you can gradually reduce this down as you improve, although I can see little benefit in doing so beyond your own pride. I believe online games are locked to the Pro Plus aiming aid level, but I couldn't confirm this due to the online mode not being populated during my review period. If I had any criticism of the gameplay, and that is that sometimes the wait between AI shots can be quite long, and this is particularly noticeable coming from the Xbox version, where there are still a few seconds of waiting at times, but sometimes on the Switch it feels like a 10-second or more wait. I have to stress that this isn't on every shot, and sometimes the AI will take their next shot immediately following their last, but it can grate to have to wait for the weaker Switch CPU to grind away working out the AI at times. When your opponent is actually taking a shot, you can hold down ZR to speed the action up, which is a welcome touch when Ronnie O'Sullivan is clearing up from your less than stellar break. Snooker is an intense game of skill, and if you want to get good at Snooker 19 and build good breaks and play a tactical game, you'll absolutely need to practice a lot, even on the easiest aiming aids. A final word on modes here, and as I mentioned, I wasn't able to find an online match, but I'm hoping this populates nicely on release. You can play a standard game versus a friend or a ranked random player and are awarded points for an online leaderboard, which is a nice touch. The developers also run what they call live events, where they will have an online event that mimics the real snooker tour calendar, and when that event rolls round, you can play online in that against others, with competitors winning consumable items to dress up their online player. So overall, I'm absolutely in love with this game. As a big snooker fan myself, it's just what I've been waiting for on the Switch, and it hasn't let me down. You can bemoan a lack of a pool variant, but you can't argue the fact that this is a 100% focus on snooker, and it's absolutely the right call. The use of the official license is excellent, and whilst the player characters look a bit rough, it's still great the effort the team went to make the game look as real as they could. It's the gameplay that really shines here. I've been playing snooker and pool games since 1984, and I don't think I've ever had so much satisfaction from building breaks in a game as I do in Snooker 19. Generally, the AI will play an excellent safety game too, and you'll be cursing them 1 minute as they tuck you up behind the black ball, only to find elation as your 3-cushion escape works to perfection. The in-depth and lengthy career mode will keep you coming back, and hopefully the online community will grow to allow something like the excellent Snooker Club Live to thrive. I'll leave a link to this community in my description, but it's an unofficial community group that play in organised leagues and cups using Snooker 19, and they'll be including Switch players going forward from today. A final mention to the really refreshing price set by publishers Ripstone for this game, which sees it match the Xbox and PlayStation price of just £29.99 and $34.99. Overall, I'm going to be giving Snooker 19 on the Nintendo Switch an excellent 8 out of 10. For any snooker fan, I can absolutely 100% recommend that you buy this, but I also believe there's some room for improvement in the future in a couple of areas. I sincerely hope Lab42 build on Snooker 19 and continue to improve this series, as they've laid tremendous foundations here, and especially getting the game running as well as they have on the Switch. Well, thanks so much for watching that review. I really hope you enjoyed it, and really hope you enjoy this game if you pick it up. Please like and subscribe if you did enjoy the video, and leave me a comment below if you're looking forward to this one, or if you prefer maybe pool games. I'm guessing a lot of Americans are going to be looking forward to an 8-ball or 9-ball pool game. Okay, that's it for now. Catch you guys on the next video. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.
Nicely done.